Hello and welcome to Hamer Reviews. My name's Christopher Hamer and today we're reviewing, or as much as I can with having spent a day with the lens, the Nikon 400mm 2.8 TC-VRS Z-mount series lens. This £13,500 behemoth is pretty incredible, having spent some time with it today. I understand it's the first 400mm 2.8 with a built-in 1.4 times teleconverter. I'm not sure, it might even be one of the only super telephotos with built-in teleconverters, but if I'm wrong, I apologize. I may not have my facts straight there. But this is the first professional super telephoto sports lens that we have seen from Nikon since the launch of the Z series. Now, yes, we do have the 70-200 2.8S and we have the 100 to 400mm f4.5 to 5.6, but this is the first truly professional super telephoto that we've seen. Obviously, it's hard to get past the £13,500 price point, which I think clearly shows that this lens is aimed purely at professionals. I can't think of many hobbyists that are going to be able to purchase one of these. And as you can see, even with the Nikon Z9, this lens absolutely dwarfs the body. The thing is though, having spent some time today with the latest version of the F-mount version of this lens, the fact of the matter is that this lens is significantly lighter than that older lens. And that makes this a much more pleasant shooting experience when you're using it than that. I found hand holding this was a lot easier. I currently have quite a bad back, and being able to hand hold this quite comfortably was a pretty impressive situation, if I'm honest. I could definitely rattle off some specs in terms of having like Super ED lens elements, SC lens elements, and in fact I'll put them all on screen so that you can see for yourself the technologies that they've developed in this. But I think what it all comes down to is incredibly fast autofocus, incredibly sharp images, even completely wide open at 2.8, and having the flexibility of turning this 400mm 2.8 into a 560mm f4 at literally the flick of a switch. Now I'm just going to get a bit closer to the camera for a second. The switch here on the side will automatically switch the teleconverter in position and move it out of the way. It is super easy to do. You can use one finger to do it, and it's incredibly slick and smooth to do, and it works incredibly well. So I'm in this velodrome, which is where we've been all day, and I've been shooting cyclists. You'll see some of the photos throughout this review. But the thing that really impressed me, and I really enjoyed, was using it at 560mm at the furthest point as they came around the banks of the velodrome, and then flicking the switch up into 1x mode and suddenly going from 560 to 400mm. And obviously with the Z9, it immediately sort of changed its focus point. I'm not even sure if it had to, but it was imperceptible, put it that way, and changed the exposure and just carried on shooting. But it just made it a joy to use. In addition, you obviously have the standard front filter thread. That's pretty standard on Nikon's Pro Super Telephotos. But overall, it's just incredibly fast. It's not in terms of its aperture, as you say, fast being a 2.8, but it's fast in terms of every aspect of using it. Whether it is the autofocus, which is, it is incredibly fast. You have your control ring on here, all works nice and quickly, having the various lock buttons which you can customize, even the memory set on the back here. It is made to make your life as easy as possible. Now, it does have a rather massive tripod foot, which I quite like the fact it's padded on the underside because they're very realistic about people carrying the lens like that. I don't believe it's removable. It certainly doesn't look removable to me, but the tripod foot does look removable with an Allen key. So if you want to replace this with a separate tripod foot, I'm sure there'll be aftermarket ones that are in place. So you can remove that, but you can't remove the actual tripod mount itself, the ring. but it is just incredibly easy to use. I've really, really enjoyed my day with it. It's not usually the kind of lens I'd get access to. I'm very pleased getting to use my 70-200 2.8, and occasionally I've had a chance of using something like a 300 2.8. This 400 2.8 is something truly incredible. If you are a sports photographer or a wildlife photographer, I can really see the built-in 1.4 teleconverter to be a real bonus. I mean, in all honesty, you could have this in your bag and not need something like a 600mm f4 because 560mm is so close to that. I also understand it is still compatible with other teleconverters as well. So you could put the 2x teleconverter on here. I'm guessing you wouldn't be able to use the 2x teleconverter alongside the 1.4, but I'll double check that with the Nikon team before I leave, and I'll just put that into a little comment so you know what I'm talking about. But overall, this lens has been really impressive. Hopefully you can see from the photographs that I've got that it's just sharp. I mean, all those photos were taken with the Z9, and the performance of the VR and the embodied image stabilization of the Z9 was, in my opinion, faultless. It's just the level of movement that it can adjust for is pretty incredible, and I found that shooting with it was a lot easier than I expected it to be. I did expect this to be quite difficult to shoot with, but overall I actually found it was surprisingly easy. Having the customizable control rings on here is really nice. Being able to choose what you want that for. Personally, I found it in the aperture is really nice because of its position. It's where your hand naturally sits. Using it to adjust the aperture as you go is really nice and easy, and it's what it's set to by default. On the side, one of the emissions, and one of the things I think is a bit of a shame, you do have an auto and manual switch, and you do have a focus limiter, so focus distance limiters between full or 6 meters and further away. But I was kind of surprised that we didn't have any VR switches on this lens. It's something I've noticed more and more with Nikon Z lineup, and it is one of the few things that bugs me and I'm going to continue to get annoyed about. I don't understand why I can't switch my VR settings on the side of the lens. There is nothing wrong with that in my opinion, and there's no reason why you can't have an extra switch or two to have VR on and off, or indeed the different VR modes. Having to do it from within the camera, yes, it's quick using the eye menu, don't get me wrong if you have it set up that way, but the fact of the matter is that it wouldn't have been that much extra effort, and I just think it's better to have that. So having spent a day with what I can only describe as a dream lens, the only criticism I can come up with is, well, it would be nice if it had those extra switches. So there you have it. The 400mm 2.8 TC VRS at £13,500. It isn't cheap, but if you're a professional, I can genuinely say I'm sure that you will be able to get full use out of this with much more than I could with the meager talents that I have when it comes to super telephotos. But yeah, it was really enjoyable to use. It's surprisingly light for such a big lens with such a big aperture. So I mean 2.8 400mm is kind of that dream combination, and the fact that I can still hand hold this, I mean I've been holding it the whole video, and yeah, it's heavy, I'm noticing it, but it's not uncomfortable, which is quite impressive, is great. Build quality wise, I will just finish, I mean this is water sealed, well, you know, weather sealed, and as well built as they come. I mean, it feels as solid as I'd expect. It does feel a bit more plasticky than perhaps I expected, but then again, you can't have it all. The front of this lens definitely feels metal. It feels kind of plastic in between a little bit. Maybe that's where, no, it does a little bit, but where are you going to get those weight savings from? I mean, at the end of the day, the plastics they're using in the Z series are incredible. So I don't think that we're going to see less longevity from this kind of equipment just because it's not necessarily made completely out of metal, because if it means that I can use it with one hand, I mean, you wouldn't necessarily use this with one hand, but the fact you could, I think that's a small trade-off to have. So there you have it. It's my little, I guess this is my little personal video on the 400 2.8S that I've managed to nab here at the Nikon NPS Z9 Experience Day. It's been great shooting it with the Z9. It's a pretty amazing combination. I hope the images that I've got are useful and give you a kind of a rough sense of what this is capable of. But yeah, if you are considering this lens, I would certainly give it a big recommendation, and I hope that one day perhaps I can own one too, but for now I'm just gonna have enjoyed having spent the day with it and got to experience it. And yeah, this is a pretty cool lens. Hopefully we can do more super telephotos in the future. I've heard that there's the 800 5.6. We're nearing more of a solid announcement for that from Nikon, but equally I'd love to try some of the Canon and Sony lenses as well. So hopefully you will see more of this content, and it'll be slightly less sort of, oh, this is amazing, I get to play with this toy. Hopefully we will see a little bit more of that content in the future, but yeah, overall I'm really impressed with this. The 400 2.8 TC, very cool innovation, and I think there's a lot of value there for a lot of professionals. So thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this short little video, and I hope I see you again next time. Goodbye.